Welcome to Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. Unlock financial clarity and confidence with expert insights to achieve your goals. Hosted by Jeb Graham, Ethan Hutchison, and Eric Wymore. Each episode offers decades of combined expertise in wealth management, retirement planning, and more. Join us for practical strategies to inspire your financial journey. Now your hosts.
Welcome to Metcalf Money Moment Podcast. My name is Jeb Graham, here with Eric Wymore and Ethan Hutchison, who are co-hosts, and have a very special guest today, Tara Renze. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Tara real quick and who you are. So Tara Renze is an international keynote speaker, an author, an emotional intelligence expert, and has a book recently published, right, Tara, that has, I guess, been out for a little bit.
It's hot off the press. It'll be in bookstores on the 21st of October.
Okay, 21st of October. So that's like a week and a half away, which is awesome. It's Be Who You Came to Be, 43 Secrets to Unlock the Most Powerful Version of You. So anyway, and then I guess I'll add on to that is that us as Metcalf Partners is getting ready to do a women's event. And our reason for doing a women's event, we've talked about this a lot of times, Eric, Ethan, and myself, is as you kind of grow a financial services practice, you start to look at like who has become a client over time. Even though we have a targeted clientele, we have an awful lot of women clients, right? And then not only that, we have a lot of household clients that the woman would be kind of the head of the financial aspect of the family. So over the years, that piece of our business has grown, and we've done several women events. And this one that we have coming up, we're super, super excited about. And we asked Tara to come be our keynote speaker to talk about her book and kind of her message. And so maybe we can just start there. And Tara, you can tell us about what you've been up to, what the book's about, anything about your career yourself. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event. I always love it when I get to do an event right in Kansas City because it involves no flying, and then obviously to connect with the community, and especially when it's a women's event, it's just always such a great night. I love what you guys are up to. It's like the perfect mix of some professional development, some personal development, and then just connection, which I think is what women really, really want, is just to connect with other women and have that night where they can, be creative with the paintings, but also make some really meaningful connections. So thanks for inviting me to that.
Yeah, we're excited. And by the way, I obviously follow you on social media, so I've seen some of your, speeches and stuff like that. Very inspiring. The message is great. And Eric had a good question about your target clientele. We can kind of go down there, but tell us about the message, to be who you came to be.
My background has actually worked in sales and sales leadership, both in corporate and in a kind of an entrepreneurial sector for almost 2 decades. And I loved what I did in the corporate world. And I, obviously loved my direct selling business that I had for a long time, as well as my corporate sales and sales leadership position. And during that time, my son, I had my first child when I was in my 30s, and I had another boy shortly after that. And my grandmother left a note for him. And in this note was her life's advice. And my grandmother wrote a lot of letters, but this one was really special. She put it on this beautiful powder blue stationery. It was penned in this, her typical wobbly black ink. And just to have an 87-year-old woman write this letter to her great-grandchild, her first great-grandson, was just such a beautiful, personalized piece of history to have in our hands. But the last 2 sentences that she wrote in this letter changed my life and completely changed the trajectory of my life, and now have changed thousands of people across the world. But her life's advice was, be who you came to be. Love will guide you. And obviously, as a new parent, that was pretty great parenting advice. I was like, okay, I'm going to raise these boys to be who they came to be, not who I wanted them to be, not who their dad wanted them to be, not who the world wanted them to be, but really help them figure out their authenticities, their strengths, what they were good at, how to navigate failures and ups and downs and all the things in life. And over that time of, helping my children be who they came to be, I really started to think of it in context of my life. And I started sharing the message because I think so many times we get into our midlife and we start to wonder, who am I? Who did I come to be? And we stopped growing and we stopped giving ourselves permission to take risks and to try new things. We kind of feel like we've checked all the boxes and should have arrived. And so I started sharing the message, first with the sales reps that we would bring into our organization, reminding them like, hey, we hired you for a reason. Like, we loved you in the interview process. We need you to be who you came to be here. And, it really changed people's self-regard, how they thought about themselves first, but then also how they were approaching work and their most important relationships in life. So after a decade of using this message, personally to raise my children, professionally, to really empower people to show up as their best self at work, I decided to make it my life's work. So in 2018, I left the salaries and all of the lifestyle of like knowing what was ahead and decided to start as an entrepreneurial business and start sharing this message, writing books and speaking. And so here I am. What is it, like 7 or 8 years later?
Wow. I can't believe it's been 7 or 8 years.
I know. It's really wild, honestly, to see just how the message has continued to grow and evolve. But ultimately, it's remained the same note, the same message that she left, 18 years ago now. And it's been interesting to take it to so many different types of audiences and markets. When I first started out, it was definitely a message for working women because I struggled so much with my own, I don't want to say identity, but, trying to navigate like motherhood and career and family and marriage and all those things and like getting back to like who I was. And so I think a lot of, women do struggle with that, that are working moms, that are working women. And then, our parents start aging up and we have that responsibility as well. And so it's such a gift to give back to women of that self-confidence, that self-regard, and remembering that the most important thing they can do in life is really work on themselves, because when we work on ourselves, everything else gets better. So I started out speaking to women, and now it's had this whole evolution of lots of different types of audiences across the U.S. and as well as internationally. I did an event in Munich last fall, and it was interesting because they translated it into like 4 different languages, and I was like, oh my gosh, that kind of resonate. Like, will people understand "be who you came to be" in Hungarian? And they did. So it was it's just a universal message that I think people really enjoy, and it does make them really think about who they are and what they're bringing to the table.
That's awesome. So did you learn Hungarian, or did you have a translator?
No, I didn't learn German, Hungarian. I can't remember the other languages that were being broadcast, but they had translators for me, which was nice. But it was weird looking up in the audience.
How cool is that?
Everyone has headphones on.
Yeah, that has to be somewhat of a surreal feeling there when you're talking and there's like 3 people talking right after you, translating everything you're saying. So.
Well, how they do it actually is they tell you like talk slow, don't use, jargon or stuff that that definitely won't translate. What do they call them? Colloquialisms, I think is what it's called. And they're just over in like a microphone onto the side. I just did my normal thing and then they're translating it as I go.
It's awesome. So Tara, tell us a little bit more about your book. Like you said, you got a workbook book coming out and a workbook.
And everyone that attends your event is going to get the book, which is really fun. So I originally self-published the book. It was during the pandemic and I didn't have a publisher. And I'm one of those people I actually talk about in my keynotes and in the book. I call them butterfly goals, which are these kind of wildly audacious goals of like, I want to go do something, but I don't know how to do it. And I call them butterfly goals because ultimately you're a caterpillar at the time. And you think, if you didn't know the metamorphosis and the transformation of the caterpillar to the butterfly, you would think it was absolutely impossible. And we get into these stages in our lives and we think, how could I ever do that? How could I ever write a book? I don't have a publisher. I don't know, who's going to buy it. And so during the pandemic, I was like, well, this is the perfect time for me to write this book because no one was having events, obviously. And so I wrote the book and then I was like, okay, well, now I have this book written, but what do I do next? I didn't have a publisher. So I just self-published the book. We had thousands of copies sent to our garage, and we became our own little Renze publishing house over here. And my boys became great at schlepping and mailing books, but we ended up selling over 5,000 copies of this book out of our house, which is really actually amazing. If you read about publishers and authors to sell 5,000 books. So I have 2 teenage sons, and my husband was like, we're not self-publishing this again. You need to go find a publisher and get them to get it in bookstores and take care of all the distribution. So this year, I signed with a publishing company out of DC, and we did a second edition of the book. If you're watching, you can see it. So it's a second edition of book. But we did leave the original book, which is just this really pretty hardcover book with the gold foil on it. So it makes a great coffee table book. And yeah, so now it's on pre-order on Amazon. It'll be in bookstores on the 21st. And we're no longer schlepping books out of the Renze house.
That's good. That's awesome. Tara, talk to us a little bit about what's next with this book. Are you going on like a nationwide tour, or are you still doing speaking events and the book is kind of encompassing all of that? What's kind of the next step?
Yeah.
For Tara?
So I've done a little book tour already this year. We did, and I'm supposed to do a couple more of them, but I'm busy speaking right now. So the book tour is like kind of the fun thing where you just get to go and hang out and people come and mingle around. But I did them with Uncommon James, which is, I don't know if you guys know who Kristen Cavallari is. She was on Laguna Beach in the hills, married to Jay Cutler for a while. Anyway, she has these stores called Uncommon James, and her whole thing is really truly being authentic and being who you came to be. So I've done 2 of her stores already in Dallas and in Chicago, and then we're planning Nashville and Charleston still. But ultimately, I'm on the keynote circuit, and I sell a lot of books that way. Just the people buy them, either the companies buy them, or people get the books afterwards. And then in true entrepreneurial fashion, you can't ever sit on one thing for too long. So I'm actually already working on another book with a different publishing company out of New York City called The Butterfly Goal Effect, which is a concept that's in this book. We talked about it just here a little bit about, when it's these transformational goals that you just have to go all in on and figure it out as you're in the process of doing it. And the butterfly goal effect is essentially like when we work on ourselves, when we start setting these transformational versus transactional goals for ourselves, it changes the trajectory of everything in our life. Our relationships get better, we show up at work better. From a company standpoint, it really does an amazing thing for creativity and innovation and belonging, because so many people put all their eggs in the corporate basket or the family basket, and then they lose sight of who they were and who they came to be. And so that's the notion of these butterfly goals. And so I'm working on bringing that concept to life as well. And that'll be a new keynote that'll be added as well in 2026.
Cool.
You're awesome. A busy individual, Tara, which is awesome. So I tell you, I guess I probably should have said this in the beginning of the podcast, but I didn't actually talk about the fact that I've known you for how long, Tara? Probably.
Gosh, a long time.
It's been a number of years. Yeah, we met through my friend Rob and his wife Angie, who's my wife's cousin, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is that your husband Scott, who's a friend as well, works at American Century. So if we're going to kind of relate this back to, so we would be a client of American Century. We use several of their funds time and time again, and hopefully compliance doesn't edit this piece out of the podcast, but we're going to find out. However, yeah, so it's pretty cool. So to have been able to watch, and by the way, your boys are the exact same ages as my girls. So you have a senior and a sophomore. I have a senior and a sophomore.
I know. I said earlier, I'm like, how is it that we just got out of college and our kids are graduating from high school? I don't know. Like, what happened to the last 20 years?
It is crazy. And so I've been able to kind of see the whole evolution, because I remember 10 years ago when you were running the direct sales business, right?
Yeah.
And I had several neighbors that kind of worked for you at the time.
Yeah.
Or worked in your, I don't know if it was work for you or work kind of in your group there. But maybe, can you tell us a little bit about like just your corporate, not only your corporate career, but then through that and kind of how you progressed through your career a little bit?
So I started in the corporate world. I actually, I had a few different really cool jobs right out of college. And then I ended up getting hired on at CareerBuilder.com in the early 2000s. And if you guys remember, CareerBuilder, Monster, they were the first online job board. So it was actually a very cool tech space to be in, but we were a true sales company. I mean, we had obviously our technology team, but everyone there was a salesperson. And so I started selling for them and loved it. And then I ended up moving up and I ran 2 of their sales offices where I had my own sales teams that I led and managed. And then I ended up running their corporate training department out of Atlanta, where we'd bring our new sales reps in, and I'd fly out there, once a month and train up all the new sales reps. And then I did kind of leadership consulting for them. So I was with them like a decade. And then I had my children, and I really I really wanted to be home more. I was traveling extensively with that job, and I just wanted to be present in the house. But I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew that wasn't going to be enough for me. I mean, I have so much respect for women who stay at the house and do, and make that their living. I mean, it's a full-time job being a stay-at-home mom. You have to outsource a lot of things if someone's not in the home. But for me, I knew I wanted to continue to work. I wanted, to continue to have that career aspect of my life. And so I stumbled upon this company called Stella and Dot, which was out of LA and New York at the time. It was a jewelry company, and they were looking for people to kind of be their founding leaders to open up their markets. And so I was here in Kansas City. It was this perfect fit. I was like, oh my gosh, I can, be at home and then, help market this brand. And it was jewelry and accessories, which was so fun. Even though I remember people thinking like, I think she's having a midlife crisis. Like, she just left this amazing corporate career to stay home and sell jewelry. But you have to do what's best for yourself and for your family always. And so it was such a great decision for me. And I learned so much about, running my own business and being an entrepreneur and leading an entirely different type of sales professional and leader. Because when I was in corporate, everyone was salaried. They were on bonus commissions, where when I was working in the direct sales world, they were truly, 1099. They only made money if they worked. So it was such an interesting and just a really curious way to learn an entire new set of leadership skills on how to lead that type of an individual. And then, the Be Who You Came to Be note came into my life in 2007 and really just started changing the trajectory of what I was up to. And then eventually, I made it my life's work in 2017, 2018.
Well, I would tell you that transition can't be easy, right? Like, I feel like from going from the Stella and Dot world to now I'm a keynote speaker. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that? Surely it's not like you woke up one day and all of a sudden you had all these keynote speeches, right?
No.
It's a long process, I would assume.
I think that anytime you start a business or you do something, we see the highlight reel of the success, and people look at it now and they're like, oh my gosh, you're doing all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, just so you know, when I first started, I didn't have one event. I truly didn't even fully have the message crafted. I just knew that I wanted to share it, and I think you make that first imperfect step, and then you just figure it out along the way. And I am one of those people. I self-published the book. If you want to do something, you just have to figure out a way to do it. And so my first event was actually here in Kansas City with a guy that I did sales trainings. I used to hire Dan Chef to come into my sales offices and train my salespeople. And he was just a great speaker, just an overall fun guy to be around too. And so he was like, well, let's just make our own event. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, we'll make our own event. We'll charge people to come to it. And we did. And we had this great event. And then, I booked another event off of that. And then I booked another event. And then slowly, I just started booking more gigs. And it was always just one event at a time, and getting to understand the industry and, what it was all up to. But it's always that first imperfect step that you have to take if you really want to do something, and know that there's no such thing as an overnight success story. And it's going to be, one step forward, two steps back. It's just the way it works being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Have you noticed through your public speaking career, the nerves that you probably had in that very first event to the one you just did, last week, or that you're doing this week? Are you still nervous and butterfly kind of when you're walking on stage? How does that change?
I still get nervous, but I just remind myself that I think most people, they confuse fear and nerves with something bad, but really it just shows how much you care. I always say, you don't get nervous about something you don't care about. You don't get fearful about something you don't care about. And so for me, it's just, I think the care of the message and really wanting to reach people and to make this message. I know it's going to change someone's life. There's so many people who really don't feel great about themselves, who don't, who have low self-regard, who don't think they matter. They don't think they're making an impact. And this message just gives them back so much of their confidence, and knowing that, ordinary people make an extraordinary impact. And so I always just channel that to say, oh my gosh, it's because you care about it. And I would say, the minute I'm not nervous is the minute I should be okay, why am I still doing this? So, and you know what? It doesn't matter if there's 20 people in the room or 2,000 people in the room. The nerves are the same, and sometimes maybe even more for 20 people. But yeah.
That's awesome. We'll try to get more than 20 there for you.
Yeah, we're going to try to get more.
This is going to be
but-
a really fun night, and I'm so excited just to have the evening to connect with everyone that's going to come. And I love your idea of doing this women's event, because I do think, so many women are the decision makers of the financial, status of the home, where they're investing money. And let's face it, there are so many successful women out there managing their own money and handling their own 401ks and their retirement plans. But I loved your idea of like, hey, we're going to invite some of our clients, and then we're going to encourage them to bring a friend. Because I think as a female, it is, if you're not the one who's naturally dispositioned to manage the money, it's incredibly intimidating. So I like that you're creating this wonderful space where people can come and learn and connect. And it's just this nice way of like not it being a super intimidating way for women to learn about that.
Yeah. And totally, like when we do things like this, when we ask them to bring a friend, number one, it's so that they have more fun, right?
Yeah.
They have one of their good friends there with them. But then the other thing is if we have a client that feels like we've given a lot of value, and I would say if you ask especially our women clients, I think pretty much our clients in general, of the value that we've brought to them, it's high, very, very high. And it's not always necessarily that we beat the S&P 500 or we do this and that. A lot of times it's they just want someone that they call, someone that's their person when they have big financial decisions to make. Even if they already have made the decision in their mind, they want that reaffirmation a lot of times. And so our hope is that, if they have somebody that could use that help, that maybe we have an opportunity to meet a person or two there as well. But that's not necessarily the motive of the event, right? The event is for our clients to come out and have fun, hopefully have a friend there with them that they can enjoy. And I think get to listen to you and hopefully see a lot of, get some inspiration out of that, during that time.
Yeah.
So
I love it. I love what you're up to. I think it's a great idea and a great event. And again, I think there's a lot of women out there who want to take more control of their finances, of their retirement. But again, it's very intimidating, especially, I have friends who were in a marriage where the husband did everything. They handled all the money and all the retirement and all the, 401ks, and then either, something happened, divorce, and then they're like, oh my God, I have no clue what to do. And that's a scary, intimidating thing. So I love that you're creating this space where women can come and connect and learn, and then start to figure it all out.
Yep.
And
Well, very
good.
good.
Like wine and painting, so
What's that?
Title, who doesn't like wine and painting?
Exactly.
Title.
That's right.
I'm already saving a spot in my new room that I'm redoing for my painting. I'm it's probably going to be an incredible painting, I'm sure. I have very low artistic ability, but I think make it pretty easy and very fun.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll leave that invitation open to you too. If you have any friends that want to come, they're welcome to come as well.
Great.
So
I would love
that. I think we have room for 75 people or so. there.
Perfect.
But no, this is great. I know we're coming up on 25 minutes and this has been productive. We're excited about the event. I'm really glad you got to come on to our podcast, and it's been a good time. So thank you much.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to the event.
Very good. This is Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. We're signing off.
Thanks for tuning in to Metcalf Money Moment, the podcast. We hope today's episode provided valuable insights to help you unlock financial clarity, confidence, and peace of mind. For more expert advice and resources, visit metcalfpartners.com. Until next time, make every money moment count.
Jeb Graham, Ethan Hutchison, and Eric Wymore are registered representatives with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through WCG Wealth Advisors, a registered investment advisor. WCG Wealth Advisors and Metcalf Partners Wealth Management is are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.